The level that we are used to functioning in, the level of the logos that deals with phenomenal plane reason, could be considered a logos that operates like a particular kind of plant, a tree. It is arborescent in its nature. Our logic is arborescent. Our minds branch out and discover new corollaries to every kind of axiom and develops a logic that branches out into all of the various permutations of possibility. But it is all functioning as a tree, whether it's a geometry or any other form of tree. It is a symbolic form that takes that model and functions in that way in order to sustain life and to sustain knowledge, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. The problem is, once that tree of good and evil begins to give fruits of evil, and the fruits of evil overpower in the winter time of life the fruits of goodness, then that tree begins to die. And so the tree of life, however, underneath, in its secret roots, contains another mind form. And we have to move from the arborescent and from the tree of binary knowledge that is based in dualities of good and evil, of life and death, of right and wrong, to a level of consciousness that transcends these conventional opposites. And this form of consciousness is mirrored by what is known as the rhizome. A rhizomatic mind is able to develop in all kinds of ways, secretly, underground, employing both the unconscious and the superconscious in ways that are esoteric, and that produce not so much a tree of branching options, but instead produces a massive form of creativity that results in various kinds of magical chemistry, of metamorphic divinization of itself, of intensities and powers that are not available above ground. It has to remain hidden, and it's in that hiddenness and rootedness that then the magic mushrooms can sprout up from the rhizome, and whole new kinds of chemistry, neurochemistry, can form that light up the brain, that light up the possibility of thought beyond anything that seems possible via the tree's various branches. But it is the combination of the arborescent and the rhizomatic that is important. Gilles Deleuze, the post-structuralist philosopher in France at the end of the 20th century, is very famous for developing his understanding of the rhizomatic form of thinking. But he put it in opposition to the arborescent. They are actually symbiotic. And we need to be able to develop both of these together to produce a kind of plant that can overcome the duality of the good and evil, and that can produce a final fruit that has never yet existed. That final fruit at the end of time, at the exhaustion of culture, at the point at which the tree has no more options, no more branching possibilities, and in which it's about to fall over. At the very top of that tree, then, is produced a star fruit. It is this star fruit that is the Star of Bethlehem on the evergreen tree that is celebrated every year. And this star fruit is the diamond. it produces a mineral as a fruit. How does a plant produce a mineral? The way it does this is very simple. Plants are phototropic, okay? They follow the light, right? You know, the sunflower will turn and make sure it gets every ray of sun, and it accumulates it. And then the plants are able to move into a process of photosynthesis, where they turn the light, the photons from the sun, into chemicals. And these chemicals, you could say, are of the mineral kingdom. But what is it? It's a captured photon that will then be carried in chlorophyll, and it will be able to give the life energy to the plant. And humans eat that life energy, digest the plant matter, and are able to remove the photon. And we actually live on the photonic energy that started out as something in the mineral kingdom and now becomes divinely luminous within us, because the photon is related to and morphed by our consciousness into its original nature as divine light, not just sunlight. The sunlight gives prana, but the yogi is able to transmogrify the prana into Shakti. And that Shakti then enables another level of consciousness to emerge as a property of our being. And that is the God seed. You see, what happens is human nature must go to seed. Okay? We must return to the God seed, and that God seed is produced only when the plant is at the point of its exhaustion, when the ego is at the point of its death. It has a near-death experience, which is a rebirth as the God seed. And that replaces the ego and the soul as the organizing principle that motivates the actions of the animal body, and enables that animal body to become a body of light. It is this that is the ultimate act of Gaia, of the earth, at that moment of transition from a planetary death to a planetary rebirth via the God seeds that are produced by the plant that is called the human mind, that has been swallowed by an animal body and has forgotten itself until that moment when it sprouts again and the God seed emerges. And this all happens as a natural process. And this is what we are celebrating on Earth Day. I assume everybody knows that. But we now have the obligation to fertilize our tree of life with such chemicals that will accelerate the emergence of the God seed. And the chemicals that we must use are divine love and wisdom. And they must overcome all the negativity of the mind parasite worms that have inhabited all the fruits that we would otherwise eat. And if we eat the ones with worms, we will get contaminated with those wormy sanskaras that are not able to then reach God's seed levels of consciousness. And this is the reason for purification. This is the reason for the need of the separation of Prakriti from Purusha. Okay? The first moment is a fission, a separation from the elements of nature, so that the power of spirit can realize itself again as that diamond seed that will then reassert its love for and union with the power of nature, the mother goddess, and through that fertilization, the God seed will be planted and will grow again as a new tree of life and bring about a new cycle of existence in an otherwise dying planet. And that is what enables the eternal circle of life to never be broken.